So, I've heard many people talk about this Ultimate Spider Man Volume 2, number 1. A lot of people talking about it. Like, it had more buzz than I've seen from anything out of mainstream comics personally. I mean, maybe there's been something bigger, but I've kind of been out of the loop with mainstream comics as far as knowing what everybody's really talking about. I still keep up as far as with the things that I like. So I still buy some things from Marvel, some things from DC, but really haven't been part of the scuttlebutt, the goings on behind the scenes, what everybody's talking about, what they're excited about. And I think that's partly due to the fact that fans have been underserved by both Marvel and DC. I bring up those two first always because IDW, yeah, they make some waves, and Image, they make some waves. Dark Horse, they make some waves, but DC and Marvel, they're top of the hill. So when you talk about mainstream comics, typically those are the two content houses that you're really talking about. So, Ultimate Spider-Man, Volume 2, number 1. Okay, so first things first. I tried to order it. Could not order it anywhere. I went to my local comic book shop. They did not have it. I had to read it digitally. I'm not a fan of digital comics. I would much rather collect my comics physically. So, Lord willing, I'll get a copy of this thing physically. Maybe third printing. From what I hear, the second printing is even selling out, which is kind of interesting because you haven't been seeing this from mainstream comics, like an excitement like this. When I read it, I understood why there was so much excitement about this book. And here's something that I did not realize, even when I was reading the book. If you don't follow Yellow Flash on YouTube, he covered Ultimate Spider-Man, and he brought something up that completely flew over my head. He said, Spider-Man, now this is a spoiler, just letting you know, Spider-Man didn't even show up in this book. It wasn't until the end of the book that you even get glimpses of Spider-Man. And I thought, man, this book was really good. Fans are underserved. There are groups that want to put certain things in books, which, as I said before, wouldn't necessarily be a problem. As fans, we just don't want that stuff put in the books that are already established. Create another character. So this book opens up with Peter Parker and Mary Jane married with 2 children, Ben and May. And I'm not going to give away too much more other than that. I want to read this article from Fandom Pulse. I believe this site is John De La Raza's site. He has a YouTube channel where he covered this book as well. Go to his YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description of this channel along with the article. But man, this book was unexpectedly good. So, people talk about modern comics, mainstream comics, and people might celebrate a book, and in your mind, you're like, okay, is this really good? And you go to pick it up, and it's okay, but maybe not as good as people made it out to be. Yo, this was actually a very pleasant read, which lately for Marvel is not the experience I get. There's some Marvel books that I have enjoyed, but I don't think any of them have been an experience like this for me in a number of years. So anyway, we're going to get to this article from the Fandom Pulse about the Ultimate Spider-Man. It says, Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man is crushing it for Marvel Comics, and it's easy to see why. Again, written by John De La Raza. It's the fandompulse.com. It's written on January 18th. And look, another thing, the art, hold on, let me pull this up. It's an Italian artist, and I don't really know how to pronounce this name. So I apologize to this artist if he ever happens to see this video. Marco Uh, Chiqueto. I think that's how you say that name. I probably butchered that. Forgive me, but he's a good artist. He is a good artist, and I've said this before. There's this thing where if you pair the right artist with um the proper script, it just goes well. And I think that's something that happened here with this book. So says one book that's actually been creating buzz in comic shops is Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man. The first issues been selling out at comic shops everywhere, making a rare win for Marvel Comics over the last couple of years. It looks like a blueprint for Marvel and DC Comics, or a blueprint Marvel and DC Comics should act with their characters, but will they listen? I don't know if they'll listen. I don't know if they will take this as a template. Why is this working? Well, one of the reasons, and I believe I can't remember if it was Yellow Flash or John De La Roz that brought this out. This book gives you what you want from Spider-Man. I mean, I grew up reading Spider-Man. Spider-Man, I would say, is in my probably top 5 best heroes. In that top 5 is Batman, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Hardware, the 1990s, early 90s Hardware. The Hardware reboot from DC, I'm not really feeling. It's just not my cup of tea personally. I'm not going to say it's trash, but what I've read from it, I don't personally like. So it says, last year it was announced Jonathan Hickman would be returning to Marvel. Along with it came a reboot of the Ultimate Universe, a series that really saved Marvel back in the early 2000s. As Marvel Comics put their top-tier talent on the books, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimates, with its launch. Spearheaded by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Millar, fans love these modern tellings of origins and early stories of the beloved characters. And I think it's because these are more traditional tellings of these characters. It's not the modern take. Not all modern takes are bad, but I think most modern takes are such a departure from what most of us are used to from these comic books that it's hard to reconcile and actually enjoy some of these modern tellings. It's just so foreign from what we're used to. It's like, maybe it's somebody's cup of tea, but I'm not interested. Article goes on to say it worked because the creators were respectful of what made the characters great. Ultimate Spider-Man featured a teenage Peter Parker in high school. We got to see him interact with Mary Jane in a positive manner, while the main books were already trying to get rid of the character by having her die in a plane crash and disappear for 2 years. And this is a common thing done by both Marvel and DC, where to create, I guess, some controversy, they will kill off characters that are loved by people. And of course, those books sell because people want to know what happened. But there's something about that just doesn't feed me as a fan personally. I'm not saying that everybody else is in this, in this same vein. But I get weary of seeing characters that I love die. Look, I know death is part of life, but part of the reason we read comic books is to escape reality and see some fantastical things. Keep it real with you. A dude running around New York City, slinging spider webs and flying all over the place, doing all kind of backflips and sticking to walls. I mean, that's not reality, and we enjoy it. Mark Millar's Ultimates, meanwhile, was such a solid story that it became the basis for the MCU Avengers later. Over the years, however, Marvel made bad choices. J. Michael Straczynski and Joe Quesada concocted a disgusting story which ruined Spider-Man Forever, where Peter Parker made a deal with the devil to uh, rid of his marriage. And I don't like stories like that. Like, it works for Spawn because, you know, this whole dynamic is like the building blocks of Spawn. But for Spider-Man, I'm not sure that works for me. And that was during the time where I kind of fell off from comics, so I wasn't reading at that time anyway. Says from that point, it never felt the same, despite attempts of writers to keep moving this single Peter Parker universe forward. Yeah, I bet you kill off Mary Jane, that's a hard sell. And you start doing this, you know, Peter Parker makes a deal with the devil. That's just not, that doesn't seem like the Peter Parker I grew up reading, and I'm sure many people felt the same way. Says fans have been demanding the return of Peter Parker and Mary Jane's relationship for years. However, no writer seems to want to deliver that in Amazing Spider-Man. The recent Zeb Wells run featured Mary Jane with a nerdy black guy and 2 children while Peter Parker sulks. Okay, John Delaross, he went off a little bit. I get it. Sulks like a cuck. Readers don't want that. And look, you might not like the way John Delaross put this, but he is correct. This is absolutely not what comic book fans want to see. They want to see Spider-Man go through some harrowing situations. They want to see him in situations that, you know, bring you to the brink of wondering, well, what's going to happen? But they want to see Spider-Man succeed. At least that's what I want to see. I'm sure that's not what everyone wants to see, but it's what I like. Says, enter Jonathan Hickman's The first issue of his Ultimate Spider-Man relaunch features Peter Parker and Mary Jane married with 2 children. It's what fans have always wanted. And when the industry is mostly selling to an adult population now, having Spider-Man in a real adult situation and relationship only benefits the character and furthers the story. And look, it's just like with any form of media, movies, cinema, music. A lot of the artists that you grew up with, you're used to a certain thing. So if that artist begins to cater to an audience that is, it's not that an artist can't have multiple audiences, right? But the audience that built you up, it's typically the people that are going to come back for more, as long as you keep providing the fans with the things they want to see. The minute you depart from that, you might catch some stragglers, but you lose your core audience. This happens in music sometimes. An artist will do something like completely off the rails. They'll gain some people, but lose the core audience that actually built them up to their detriment. And I think this is partly what happens to some degree to these big content houses, Marvel and DC, leading the charge in that area. Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man only had 1 issue so far, but reviews are stellar. Treating characters with respect, giving them a logical next chapter in their lives based on the morals and history resonates with fans. It does much better than the odd attempt to make replacement characters like Jason Aaron making Thor a woman or turning beloved X-Men characters like Iceman gay. Now, the Jane Foster Thor run, personally, I didn't have a problem with that. I thought it was interesting, but I know I am one of, few lone voices in that. Again, you don't have to enjoy what I enjoy, but I didn't think that was that bad. And you can see some of the art here done in Ultimate Spider-Man. It is good. Like, seeing a mature Peter Parker makes sense at this stage, um, for Marvel as a company and for Spider-Man as a character. I mean, it really does. So this was an interesting reaction. And John Del Ross mentioned this on his YouTube video where he was talking about this. He said, in speaking with the retail comic shop owner who asked to remain anonymous, Fandom Pulse found that the books are flying off the shelves. Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man #1 is sold out not only there, but in multiple comic shops. I can speak, from personal experience. I went and talked to my local comic book shop today, and they said that thing flew off the shelves. The second printing of the book is already selling better than 90% of comics out there. This is the second printing. That's crazy, the shop owner said. And that's with people calling in for orders, as the second print has not hit stands yet. I went to look. It was so bad. I was like, okay, I want a physical copy of this. I went on Amazon to see if I can get, a physical copy, not just a digital copy. I could, but I think it said I wouldn't receive it until like August or something like that. I was like, oh, I'm sure I'll find a copy before then. I was like, this is crazy. Okay, when asked why Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man is selling so much better than other books, the character is one thing, but it's a level of talent as well. I would agree, both the art and the story. There was a level of talent on this book that has been missing in many respects in some of these modern comics. Marvel only wants to pay a few writers, the comic shop owner said. Otherwise, Marvel Comics cheaps out on their talent and the stories suffer as a consequence. They use the clout of writing for Marvel Comics to lure in people who aspire to be a part of the industry. Don't pay them well and don't get good results. Man, I don't know why Marvel would continue to do that. Like, why would you do something that you knew wasn't going to yield good results? Well, maybe they thought it would. Maybe they thought that they were, so stable, perched on top of their hill that no matter what they did, fans would just sop it up. I don't think what any company or a company like Marvel could account for is people like me that grew up on these books that would gladly spend money on a good story. When I read some of these books, like I tried to hang on for X-Men Days of Future Past. I bought that first book, and I just personally, I was like, this is just, I cannot buy the second one. And I tell you another thing with this Ultimate Spider-Man that connected with me personally. A lot of what Marvel has done with some of their books, like everything is post-apocalyptic, like the whole X-Men and Krakoa, and there's like normal humanity is almost absent from the book. And the dynamic of comic books that I always loved is you have these super powered beings and normal people, and you have the balance of these, intergalactic threats to humanity with that whole dynamic. Like, it wasn't really post-apocalyptic. It was the heroes trying to keep the world from becoming a post-apocalyptic nightmare. So there was a sense of normalcy while having these extraordinary things happen. That's enjoyable. Like, I like that as a read. When you start getting into too much of this post-apocalyptic, half the world is gone, everything is destroyed. For me, that just gets bland at some point. Like, I don't want to see that anymore. I've seen it. It's been done. I get it. But I just want to see superheroes helping out normal people in a normal world with some extraordinary things. Spider-Man Ultimate, the Ultimate Spider-Man, this might be paying off for Marvel. Will it continue? I think Yellow Flash made a good point. He said, we'll see. We shall see. Maybe it will continue, and maybe it will continue to fly off the shelves and be great. Or maybe Marvel, I was about to say Marvel. Maybe Marvel will at some point just say, okay, we've sold enough books. We can let the story go crazy and die now. Who knows?